Gracious, good morning. I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July. I'm going to jump into a very brief recap after decision three. We're at the finish line here because decision four is really the last decision that involves futures, that involves cash flows and things we've become used to because in five there are no future decisions and there's a trick with inventory that you'll learn about. Don't worry about it right now. We have to make four happen first. Let's jump very briefly into the results, and you can make copies for your final presentation. But there are a couple highlights here that are very easy to see now that we're used to looking at the major factors in the sim, which are teamwork. Is everybody holding up their end of the log? EBIT, which we'll jump into in the rankings in a second. And of course, the two major drivers, lost orders over inventory, matching supply and demand, and price. What are there major price issues? Or are we competing on other bases, investing too little, too much in marketing compared to what we're making and that kind of stuff? So let's jump in. Okay, here are the standings. This is one of the, in years, is one of the most unusual universes we've ever seen in that we have a clear one, two, three in all of the red team is clearly one across the board. Blue is almost one across the board, except yellow stole the revenue place two, and yellow is almost number three across the board. So we'd expect there not to be very curvy lines, and there aren't. We've got it straight from decision two to three, very strong red, blue, yellow, and we'll see the franchises that have been built. It's unusual because really people have chosen kind of this is where we're going to invest, and there are a few lapses we've had that are easily explainable and that are easily correctable. This does not mean that yellow cannot win this sim after the next two decisions. They can because decision five is very different with inventory, and decision four, most teams are above the line. So let's look quickly at our line and then the financials that are driving it. This is really what stands out. By this decision and by four, almost all the teams are at least at break even because unless there's someone not holding up their end of the log and not showing up, and the team isn't functional, everyone's kind of got the idea of like, let's watch EBIT, let's watch our revenue to make sure it's strong, profitable, because this is all EBIT here, and it's driven by price and lost orders over inventory as the two major drivers because that also involves supply and demand with lost orders. So we should have that LOI line fairly, and we'll look at that in a second. But where are the problem areas? Number one, it's easy to see if you're almost in positive territory in all the lines, you beat the sim. You've got it. You figured it out. You're understanding you can run this business. Well, that's the case with red. Red is obviously doing is very strong, not as strong in image as blue is, and everyone is doing great in image, which we'd think they would do. Yellow is close to break even in it, but yellow really should be up here with the other teams because image is our golden cash line. So there's a cash problem. There's a cash flow and a cash problem when you have problems in image or in family. Now, what's interesting is blue took a hit in family, and this is very, otherwise blue would be, close to number one and tying red. Look with how good they're doing in image, yet they took a real hit in family, which is unusual at this stage also, just like it's unusual for yellow, it's unusual for blue. And this is almost 99.9, we'll see in a second, due to price. Not thinking on the main thing, don't make any big changes when you have extremely elastic price elasticity of demand. So now the interesting thing when you look at the tough to do anything with line, which is eco, is that yellow is broken into positive territory, which is very hard to do in eco. So that's why there's a lot of hope and there's not a lot of giant downs here for yellow either. They're very close to break even on all those. It's just a matter of what's going on price wise, especially lost orders of our inventory with yellow in low cost. So you can see the focus areas we need to hit with this next decision very clearly. It's now not a whole bunch of moving parts. It's some manageable, controllable moving parts. So let's start with focusing kind of on this yellow downturn in low cost. Let's look at low cost and look at some numbers here. If I can get this thing to work, let me move this bar. Okay, here's our low cost line. Now let's look at yellow and low cost. First of all, is yellow going for revenue and low cost? Let's look at price. Yes, they are. You've got a clear, we want to be a revenue maker here in low cost, did a great job. So it's a lost order over inventory issue more than it is price with blue um, in family. So we have to focus now on what's going on. Look at our red dots here. Obviously, there's some issues with red in terms of low cost. They could have been a little closer to the 46. They're doing a profit play here, which is fine. Red is number one across the board. They're doing great. I'd say maybe 48, 47, but and then these could change too. So you can't really guess the next because you don't know what your competitors are going to do, but you're getting a good idea what they're going to do. Again, any overspending in engineering, we should be close to 100 by now. 99.99, 131. So we're still making a play for in low cost, which is another of the issues. We've been very um, doing a lot of engineering, a lot of marketing, and having a low price. So we're making a major investment in low cost. It's a strategy Yellow's taking, and it's just got to be moderated a little bit. You may not want getting great revenues because you have such a low price. You may want to be at 44 and 110, in this line because, obviously you're doing really well in eco, which has never happened. So let's look at family where we have a problem with blue and no one else very much. Let's look at what's going on with family. First of all, with price. Um, yeah. Do you definitely 78 is suicide. I mean, it's like where's your market share down here? All right. Well, it's got to be a negative rosé too. I got my rosé hat on. Yeah, it's the only negative rosate here. So blue's got a major problem in a very high cash, and it's us easily, they're investing heavily, they're making it a play, but they're going for huge, and blue is going for huge EBIT play instead of just revenue by having that high of a price. But you're pricing yourself totally out of the market. You can't, we're talking about try to stay 2 to 3 points, not 10 points. That's it from the very onboarding video. It's please make small, you're a helicopter pilot. You're not race car turning hard doing the Tokyo drift. You're in a helicopter. Every delicate thing changes things a lot. So that's fairly easy to fix and easy to see. And blue's number two across the board and could be number one. That's just one thing that took a chunk. Every other blue is over break even and is a dynamic, incredible um, company in the image business. I mean, blue took it all in image. So let's look at where yellow did really well, amazingly well, and a very hard line. Some people shut eco down, and everyone almost has. They're not. You can see they're close to the 80, 100% level here. There's not a huge amount of engineering going into eco. Some are trying to make some plays. Yellow isn't. So you can see the conservative nature here. And these are lost orders over inventory, and they're a play to make a profitable line with the revenue. So you wouldn't expect a whole lot of price issues because, nobody in eco is way, way up or way, way down. So you can see how price sensitive this is reflecting in your EBIT. So that's the story with eco and just if anyone can take a screenshot and look at what yellow's doing right here, because it's very difficult to do this. Price is in a good place. Um, Obviously, engineering, you're trying to get closer to 100. Everybody almost is, but then you can go down the row and look at where they're in the blue in terms of making a big revenue play, which yellow always has and it's paying off. Look at this here, and the EBIT's good too. So Great job, yellow. And let's look finally at image, where yellow had an issue that they should not have because they are good thinkers. What happened here? Um, okay, where we've got a much, much, much lower price in image here to try to make a revenue play. Let me see, where's our revenue here? Compared to red, red just took this away, and blue did great too. This is a really good comparison because look at the price differences here. There's a major, major price issue here in terms of profitability. So the revenue isn't bad, but there's not, when you want to be closer to, let's say 80%, you got to be careful with image because you can get high capex and really get lost orders and your cash get destroyed. But this will destroy cash when you're only at 50% in image, and it's a very engineering oriented. And on the other hand, you look at red, and I mean, blue must be, look at all these red bands, blue bands and blue. Well, yeah, blue basically took, I have to keep cycling back and forth, but blue actually did take away image in a great way. That's where you want the price to be, around 140. All three teams are usually 140 by decision four. That's just a hint. But then engineering, don't be that conservative where you're way down at 50, but don't be at 110 in a very expensive line. Although red did great here too. These are based really high bars, and yellow is not that far from break even. So image is still doing good. It's just I'm just doing a little pushing here that image can be a wonderful line in these last two decisions, and just keeping an eye on this. And then of course, yellow made a revenue play and everything else except this in terms of what they're spending on engineering, and that shows in the revenue. And then where's our favorite return on capital employed? Yes, only only yellow had a problem in image. Everybody else is really strongly positive. And nobody really gets to um, accumulated retained earnings in this sim, just because that means you're covering not only your costs, but your stock's going way up because you're funding your company internally. That rarely happens in a turnaround, which is for real. Plant capacities are, this is where we see our lost order inventory kind of feed into the financials. So without further ado, let's hop into the lost orders over inventory. So here's our zero line up here, and we kind of tripped and fell in yellow. And I said that's probably lost over inventory. Well, it is. So your yellow has been having a lot of investment in trying hard in low costs, but not being able to get that supply and demand put together, that zero line, try to get as straight as possible. Both red is obviously, red and blue are both must be at even break even because we're close enough to the zero and we're staying steady as she goes. There's a little bit of inventory buildup with red, so red might be a little lower than blue, although they maintain consistent inventory across the top here. So it's the lost orders that kill you, where you're marketing, you're doing great, you're getting the revenues and the orders, but you can't fulfill them. So that's been a problem where yellow had a huge problem in that and kind of corrected it, and now they went the other way where they're not matching supply and demand in low cost, which is why they could be really tied for number two and number one. This is the line that actually killed them, and we'll look more closely at where they did well in eco. But let's go to family, and family, other than blue kind of took a little problem, right? Did they? Yeah, so no one's doing really bad. In fact, yellow did much better. They must have broken into positive EPIT. Look at this, how well they matched this from having huge lost orders. So whatever you did in family, think about it, yellow. If you do the same thing at low cost, you're going to be gold and you could win the sim. You could get that last decision with the tricks in inventory. Basically, what the decision five is, don't think of this for four, but for week seven and decision five. There's no more future planning on the plant. There's no more loans because it happens the next period, which is a year later. And inventory, whatever changes you make, all the inventory you have changed the same way. So if you have a bunch of old inventory, you make some changes that are cool in inventory, all your old inventory gets those cool changes without being charged. So there's a secret there. And there's before decision five, a very important video you have to watch, but that's now, not now. So let's not, but so that means this is your really last decision. Four, it's not. You have a five, but four is the last one where what you do is going to matter a lot. There are tricks in five that everybody can use just to either maintain their lead or to take a big jump up. So again, this looking at family where everybody kind of did close to break even, but it looks like they kind of switched here where red was in a good place towards zero, but kind of got some lost orders in family, and broke into positive EBIT. They're close enough to zero here, closer than anybody else. I mean, yellow's doing well too, so they must be positive in family in terms of if you go back and look at their EBIT, it must be positive. But blue has that pricing problem in family, right? So they're building inventory because they had such a high price. It's not just a matter of not producing enough as you have down in the lower part of zero. So let's look at eco, where yellow has built a franchise. Where's the zero line compared to yellow? Here's zero. Yellow had huge lost order problems, huge, got better, better. And look at, they're right dead on the zero here. I mean, what kind of predictor is this when you're building a franchise in a BU? You know, this business unit of Eco is a real gem for yellow, and they're dead on with what they're, so how close of a predictor is this for EBIT? It's great to look at these now. Not all the classes give LOIs. It's such a powerful inventory or indicator rather. And some of the profs in the class just say, no, you have to figure this out yourself, which is in a five decision course doesn't seem fair to me, but it's fun because in a real business, you're going to look at this, even if you're selling software or whatever, supply has to meet demand. And this is where accounting, economics, and operations all come together is at this point, is can we match our supply and our demand accounting wise, economically with economics as well as strategy. So finally, image where everyone did yellow tripped a little bit in image. Oh yeah, obviously look at that. We're still building a huge amount of inventory. And remember we said it's not a big pricing issue. There's some issue, but yellow probably has some issues with inventory, LOI, and it does. So everybody else is right there. Our other two teams are, it's neck and neck. Blue built a little inventory, but nothing to talk about because zero line's right here split the difference, and red and blue are very strong in terms of EBIT. So yellow, there's a couple of things you can do here, both in the two extremes, low cost and an image, where you kind of tripped a little bit. Now, image is close to break even, so they needed some inventory, but not this much. If this would have steadied out down here, that bar with yellow would be up in the positive, even though it's close to break even now. So we're not going to do a lot on the white lines today. We'll go very closely because that is not as big an issue, just in a couple areas where you can see the overspend in the previous numbers, um, where it's overspending in engineering or underspending in engineering in the case of image with yellow. So let's jump onto that. Red team, low cost. Great. Look at the match. Awesome matching. Red team family. Look at that match. Someone's got this sim figured out. Eco. This is what you see when you don't have any idea in decision one what's going on. You're all over the board and suddenly you're dead on. We did great in low cost. Blue's got this down also. We're going to wonder about family and see what's going on with family here. Not too bad. There's a little bit of overinvestment in consumption for family, right? But still not too bad. The issue is really this is a pricing issue in family. It's not a matching customer needs to what you're producing. Awesome also. Could easily be a number one team. This is um a very problematic low cost for yellow, and you can see why. How predictive this is. And some of this is just saying, let's look at last decision and what do we need to do to get closer to the white line. And that's there's something going on with meeting of teams in yellow getting together and everybody deciding what to do. When you have this kind of a curve, it means the team is slightly dysfunctional in terms of some of members showing up, not consistency and that kind of stuff. Because just to have this kind of a curve like that, it's not saying it's got to be here, this has got to be there. It's more staggered. So this would not be difficult for Yale to fix. That's why I'm saying they can do really well if they just keep an eye on those couple of areas. Family should be a better match. They did fine. Blue had an issue in price, but they're fine in family here. Let's look at their franchise area of eco. See, there's not any major, the size is an issue here where they're at least they're not underspending, but they are underspending a little in consumption because, consumption is the key to eco, but they still did good and broke even in just in eco. They did better than the other two teams. Where's image? Let's get on to image here. Image we expect to be some. Yeah, it's not bad. Their issue is really inventory building and image. So let's look at our final look just for a snapshot to help you with your decision is let's look at corporate capacity as well as key free cash flows here. And you can see what happened with cash flow in low cost where I kept saying through this whole recap that let's look at the cash flow in yellow for there. There's your problem in terms of low cost. And that's loss order inventory will do that. If you have a lot of loss orders, you invested in it, it's going to burn through cash, that CapEx. Cash flow is good, cash good. You can see the differences in the lines here. Facility investment strong, especially in family. Corporate cash flows, just for snapshots in strategy, your last two decisions. And that's it. That's our recap for decision 3, leading into decision 4. Again, I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. God bless America, 250 years. And my granddaughter got a beautiful new flag, which was a wonderful gift for the 4th that we got put up on our right by our front porch there. So anyway, remember Rose and keep your eyes on EBIT and loss orders over inventory and fix the pricing problems and you'll have an easy, this is where decisions become much easier because you know what you're doing and it's minor course corrections. It's not a lot of major changes. So see you in Halo.